everyone, Jim Branscombe here for the Cinematic Void blog. Since it's January, we're obviously celebrating January Giallo all month long here in the Void, and I figured this would be a good time to do another edition of cult cinema books and some of my favorites, and this time it's going to be Giallo focused. So let me talk about some of my, favorite books that deal with my favorite subgenre. And I'm going to mention this briefly because I already talked about it in episode 1 or edition 1 or whatever you want to refer to, which is Spaghetti Nightmares. It's a great book. You want to hear me talk more about it, definitely check out part 1. I go more in depth, but I felt like I had to at least mention it, even though, I already talked about it. But, lots of filmmakers and actors and special effects artists, all who worked in Italian horror cinema and obviously Giallo films. The next book isn't solely focused on Italian exploitation cinema. It actually deals with films of Spain and France as well. It is Perverse Titillation. It is one of the earlier books that kind of tackles this subject. It's really good. Obviously, the Italian section goes really hard into like a lot of the Giallo films, but also covers a lot of the other exploitation movies made in Italy at the time, and again, as well as Spain and France. So if you want to kind of take a deep dive into Eurotrash cinema, this is a good book. Up next, this is filmmaker specific. It is Broken Mirrors, Broken Minds. It is a book about the films of Dario Argento by Madeline Madonna. I've had this book for years. I'll occasionally pull it out and just kind of flip through it, and if I need a reference for some Argento, this is the book I go to. Alan Jones also wrote a really great Argento book, but this is kind of my, if I have to pick one Argento book, this is my Bible. I think there's probably newer editions of this. This one stops at Opera, but I don't know if she's updated and added some more films over the years, but either way, this is a great book and great insight into the films of Dario Argento. Now, this next book actually focuses on an element of the Giallo film that I really like and am interested in, so this was just perfect when I saw that this came out. It deals with, the element of artists or art used in Giallo films. It's called the Giallo Canvas, Art, Excess, and Horror Cinema by Alexandra Heller-Nicholas. It is a great book, especially if you're into the more art aspect of those films. This is highly recommended. This is a book I usually pack on flights and just kind of read and just revisit over and over again. It's a great book, definitely check it out. Now this book is more of an academic, dissection of the genre. It's called La Dolce Morte, the Vernacular Cinema and the Italian Giallo Film by Michael J. Coven. It's really in-depth. It actually does the one thing that I always want to do. It actually contacts J&B Whiskey and asks, why was their product so prevalent in all those Giallo movies? And you want to know the answer? Gotta get this book. Now, speaking of academic, this is another kind of really dense book that I'm reading. It is Italian Giallo in Film and Television, A Critical History of Roberto Curti. This is a really great book. I'm probably halfway through it right now, and I'm just basically getting to the beginning of the popular run of Giallo films. Basically, this book talks about how Giallo has kind of always been part of Italian cinema back to the silent age, and obviously talks about the books, the books they call Giallo, which had the yellow covers, which were all the murder mysteries that kind of led into the genre. So it's really in depth. It's actually eye-opening. I'm learning stuff that I didn't even know, and I don't know, I'm really digging this. And it's a pricey book, but I will say it is worth every penny. Definitely pick it up. Now, these next two I'm going to do together, which is So Deadly, So Perverse, Volumes 1 and 2. These are great reference books by Troy Howard. Basically, if you like the lists kind of format, these are great. Volume 1 goes from 1963 to 1973, and then Volume 2 does 74 through 2013. So all the listings are in chronological order, so you kind of get to see the evolution of the genre. It obviously starts with, The Girl Knew Too Much, and goes to more modern times. But it's really kind of great because you get to see the release of how all these movies came out and basically, how the Giallo evolved, kind of disappeared and came back. So, again, it's a good checklist if you like to have a reference book to see a movie that oh, here's the title, here's the synopsis, cool, I want to check it out. And these books are also helpful because both of them actually list what available formats a lot of these movies are on. They might be out of date now because they're a few years old, but it'll give you reference that these movies are out there to watch. And lastly, a little shameless plug, even though it's out of print, Cinematic Void Zine Volume 2. This is, the Giallo issue. Long sold out, but hey, you might be able to find one floating out there. I basically talk about my personal opinion on what makes a good Giallo and what is and isn't a Giallo. And, there's a bunch of film recommendations here as well. but yeah, out of print, but whatever, shameless plug. So those are some of my favorite Giallo-centric cult cinema books. Sound off the comments if you have a book that I didn't mention that you want to recommend, or if you ended up checking out some of these books based on my recommendation. Tell me what you think of them. Until next time, see you in the void.